So we'll give it
Okay.
just a few minutes. Okay,
Okay.
so I have gone ahead and
I'm
started.
writing my answers.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Double Your Business in 90 Days or Less. Yes, it can happen, but you have to be very focused about making it happen. I am your host, Leslie Hassos. I am a business coach out of Dallas, Texas. And this is one of the fun things that I do in my business to also market, but also to serve, is to have this show. And we every week, if you've been with us so far this year, you've seen that we've shared everything from mindset to business skills and numbers to marketing techniques. And that's really what we're doing today, is talking about how to use speaking to market your business as a way to double your business. So we're going to have lots of fun today. We're going to have on a few guests. But who you can see who's shaking her head because she's so excited to be here is Kim Tracy. And Kim Tracy is a speaker agent, owner of the Maxwell James Agency. And you'll find that she possesses a communications background degree that encompasses marketing, public relations, and sales. She's awesome at sales. But as she has designed and implemented PR and marketing campaigns for other people's, including special events across all these industries, which I love, she really found the need to become, an expert in being looking to others for speaking. A little fun fact. But she has been a marketing manager for Penton Media's Boardwatch, CLEC magazine, and has managed aspects of promoting both trade clubs and complementary websites. So the marketing expertise is huge, but her background includes working with Hershey Foods, Keller Williams Realties, the Core Hotel Group, and Playa del Carmen. I just got back from Mexico myself a couple weeks ago. So with that, Kim, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, awesome. I'm excited because we're going to be having a lot of fun here. And what you'll see is Kim and I have no shortage of being able to chat. We will, if anything, we'll have to make sure we try to trim it down and keep things going there. So I know Amy's here with us today. If you've been on the show before, you know Amy helps manage the chat box. She's having a little hard time dialing back in. So we'll keep our eyes and ears open for her so that we can do that. But let's just dive right in and let's really get to talking about speaking as a way to market your business. And I think there's a couple of interesting things to consider with this is speaking can be your business, like that is your business and that's what you do, or you can use speaking to market your business, or you can do a blend. So I know I do a blend. I think from some of our some of our guests that are going to pop on do a blend. But let's just take these top 3 ways that we see people using speaking in their business, Kim, and let's just chat about it. So the first thing I want to do is talk about free speaking. So let's talk about what is that? What do you see people using for the kind of free speaking aspect to grow their business?
I think free speaking is a great way to practice new content, get really good feedback from audiences that are just off the cuff. It's the opportunity to practice your presentation skills, your interpersonal communication skills. Are you comfortable speaking in front of audiences of varying sizes? And the people that you're usually speaking to, I've heard it recommended, you can do it at your Toastmasters club. You can do it at a Rotary. You could do it at a Chamber of Commerce. You could even do it at a community center. So there are no shortages of free speaking opportunities.
There really aren't. And I think especially as we've had the advent of things like meetup.com, where you have so much greater access to all these different groups, there are people who are hungry to have speakers come in to fill their time on a weekly basis. A couple of things here that I think is interesting to point out here. If you are completely used to just being an educational kind of speaker, like where you're sharing content out the wazoo, this won't make you money necessarily.
No.
Doing free speaking. I mean, if you're educational, go pay to speak. But if you have the ability to sell while you speak, to be able to educate, provide value, but also entice people to want more from you, then this could be a great marketplace for you. What kind of impact do you think people can expect to have to their business? We were just talking a little bit about depending on the content, depends on what you can do with this. But what do you like about free speaking? Why should somebody consider free speaking?
Exposure is your number one reason. It is to increase awareness of who you are, what your business is, and what you offer. It's also an opportunity to talk about the topics that you like to discuss. Maybe you are practicing an online training course. Maybe you're practicing for a webinar. Impacting your business in this positive way can be very good. Even, for example, this conversation right now, this is where we are giving our time to learn from two of our speakers who are really doing a very good job at marketing their businesses, not only on the free paid speaking or the free side, but also on the paid side.
Okay, awesome. So let's talk about paid speaking, since we've kind of been talking about these two in tandem. And really, paid speaking is your arena, right? This is where you specialize in. So,
right.
And you laughed at this question earlier off air when we were getting ready, but let's just define it in case somebody doesn't know. What do you consider paid speaking? What does that mean?
A paid speaking engagement is when an organization contacts me or vice versa, and they say, we saw Devin Kearns on this speaker reel. We really want him to come in and do this talk. How much does he cost? And I then go into negotiations of finding out what is the hiring party's budget? What are they looking for him to do? What is the scope of work? What's the time commitment? And I am able to take all this information back to Devin and say, we've got an interested party. What do you think? And we start working this deal very much like a real estate contract.
Interesting. Hey, Devin, do you want to pop on, since we're using you as an example so much there? Go ahead and pop on. Let me get him. Devin Kearns with Devin Dating Coach. We've got you. You're in where are you in the States?
That's a great question. I wish I knew. No, I'm in Denver, Colorado right now.
Okay,
my home city.
You're cold with Kim.
We're not cold. It's like 50 degrees outside.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
We've got somebody else that's going to be coming on this in Lubbock, Texas, and anybody in Texas will tell you that's cold. That's just cold. Although he might actually be a little colder. So let's talk a little bit about paid speaking, because I think there's a lot of sexiness around it, a lot of attraction to it. People are like, oh, I'm going to get paid to speak. But what does that really mean? I mean, there's behind everything that's successful, there's a plan and there's some effort that goes into it, making it successful. So, Devin, what's been your experience? Like, what has been like my secret sauce to making it work for me?
I look at it a couple different ways, because I think as a company, you've got to figure out what your goals and objectives are, where you really want to make your money from, and then how are you going to get there, right? So when it comes to speaking, for me, a paid speaking event is awesome, but I'm equally as excited about the opportunity to speak in front of large groups of people, even if it is for free, because I've got a bigger goal for my company, which is I have to reach 1 million women in 2016 with a specific message around being single. And the message that I have as a coach in the dating industry, the bigger goal means I need exposure more than I need a paid speaking event. So for a company, I think it really just depends on what your goal is. If you need revenue from speaking, then you've got to determine that before going into speaking and get clarity with somebody like Kim, who is your agent and working on your behalf, so that you can get paid to do that and count on that revenue. If the revenue is actually on a different scale, or coming from online sales or coming from product sales, then really the name of the game is exposure times conversion equals getting paid. So either way, I'm going to get paid for my speaking. It just depends on where I expect that money to come from.
Yeah, and if it's forward leading or backward, and those different things. So I like what you said, just trying to meet or reach 1 million people, because I have that kind of goal too for businesses. And I think it's interesting to see those people that have those really specific reasons behind speaking. Kim, talk to me a little bit about it. In my opinion, it takes a special kind of person to be able to speak for free or speak, paid speaking. They both have their own nuances and things that you've got to do to make them successful. What kind of person is it that generally is successful at doing that?
I look for somebody who has charisma, right? I look for somebody who's prepared. Do they have synergy? Can they connect with me And then can they connect with an audience? Obviously, when somebody sends me a speaker reel, I'm pretty much evaluating them right off the bat. I look for, do you enunciate well? Do you speak well? Or, do you have a great presence on stage? Devin and I, we have the fortunate opportunity that we can actually meet face to face. And whenever I see him, it's like he's beaming. So he's got this charisma that people they're attracted to him on the street corner. So I really look for, what are they going to bring to the table? Not only in let's say an interview like this, but can they magnify that on a stage?
Oh, that's a good point what you were just bringing up, because I was sitting here thinking, one-to-one, I can be quiet. I can be a little more reserved, but I know to be effective on stage, I have to really amplify. And in my brain, I push circles. I push myself out, and that's just one of the tools I use to get big enough, because you're a little bitty person on it feels like you're on a really big stage, but from the back of the stage, you're a little bitty person. Right?
What are you talking about? I'm huge.
Right? I mean, unless there's a Jumbotron, you absolutely have to bring it on stage, right? Devin and I, we've been on television enough that we know the camera takes away 30% of your emotions. So you have to smile bigger. You have to be, overemphasize your gestures, or that person in the back of the room, they're not going to get the experience that the person in the front of the room is going to be getting.
Mm-hmm. You want that experience from one on. Let's go ahead. We've got Devin. I'm going to do two things. Steve, if you don't mind going ahead and calling in, and Devin, just take a minute and introduce yourself. I did not do that well, and I always love for people to understand who we're talking to and things like that, because they might be listening to us on iTunes and not seeing everyone here. So just go ahead and share with us who you are.
The long and short of it is, I was called to be in the dating industry and focus on the 140 million people that are kind of frustrated with dating and finding love and finding quality people. And I don't just coach tactically around dating. I coach on self-growth and how that looks in terms of relationship, and how I can better my relationships in all areas, so that then I can be magnetic and pull people in. In regards to what's important around this topic, I've spent a lot of time and probably over 10 years public speaking as well, and spoke in front of hundreds and as well as thousands. And when you are in that back of the room, and as Kim was mentioning, you've got to have a huge presence. And on that note as well, what I think is really important, just real quick, that I was actually speaking with somebody that's going to do some public speaking, and she was crazy nervous. She is super charismatic, everything else, but public speaking for some people is actually a larger fear for them than death, which is incredible to me. Because I love the front of the room, as you may or may not be able to tell. However, what I always tell people that kind of need that coaching is, when you walk on that stage, it's not about you anymore. It's about the message that you have to deliver to those people. And that's how you can be expansive in that bubble that you're referencing, is understand that bubble is about them, and pulling them into an energy where you're trying to disseminate information and assist them in becoming better at whatever it is that topic is, right? So focus on them, and focus and pour your heart and energy towards what they need to hear, and make it less about you and your nerves.
I will say I lose a sense of self when I'm up there, because it is about, I'm trying to pay attention to the crowd so much. That's a really good point. Now, we brought on Steve Dawson. Steve is going to be our last person in here that can help us. But Steve, go ahead and give a short 30-second about who you are, where you're from. You're in warm Texas.
Warm Texas. It's 66 degrees here, and we still have our space heaters on.
It's 73 here in Dallas. That's all I have to say.
No, I'm Steve Dawson. I own Dawson Forensic Group, and basically what we do is white collar crime investigation. And so I'm dealing with financial criminals, and that has, some good days and some bad days, but basically the firm, what we do is not only investigation, but we also do litigation support. We do internal control consulting, where a company will hire us to come in and help them with the design of their internal controls so that internal fraud won't happen. And then the last thing we do is really a training, education, speaking, whether that's at conferences or whether that's being hired by a company to come in and train them on a specific aspect of fraud prevention.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the nutshell.
So you could be like CSI for business.
That's what we call ourselves. You know.
He's the guy that, Leslie, we want Tom Allen to fly us over from Dallas to Steve's office in Lubbock so we can intern and wear like the hazmat suits and just carry around all of his equipment for him.
Yeah, there you go. I don't have any sunglasses though, so.
Oh, we gotta be silent.
We'll get you some sunglasses.
Yeah, I need to upgrade.
So we've got lots of people who are here online. A lot of people watching us that aren't active in the show. So if that's you, just want to say a quick shout out to that. We've got Devin Kearns on here, Kim Tracy, Steve Dawson, and thank God your names are right there in front of me, so I don't have to rely on my memory. And Amy's kind of hanging out here in the chat box. If you've got questions and you want to talk to these people as we're talking about using speaking to market your business, then by all means, plug us in on the chat box so that we can get those questions answered. We'll be doing that. Now, the third kind of way that I have in here that when I thought about speaking was through webinars. Now, who here uses webinars? And kind of, if you're watching live, it's just kind of a webinar type of format, maybe a little less structured and educational, but it is about the relationship and what we're building here. So who does webinars right now as a way of speaking?
I definitely have and do. Yep.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Definitely. How long have you been doing? Because I was talking to somebody last week that was like, webinars are dying, you know.
Ooh.
It's always going to be transitioning out, but are y'all still using it as part of your marketing plan for your businesses?
Yeah,
I recommend that people do, because we had a speaker maybe a month and a half ago. They actually were called in to do a combo of a live presentation where they were in front of about 300 people. But then, because the company is global, they stream them to the other non-Colorado locations, if you will.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'd say the technology is changing, and that may be what is being referenced when they say it's dying. But I mean, why would I not capitalize on the opportunity to reach 1 million people versus 100 that are sitting in the room right in front of me right now? I mean, that
Yeah.
From the comfort of your house.
Yeah, exactly. I can't imagine that that's dying.
You don't even have to look pretty for all of them, right? You don't have to.
I mean, we know that Steve Dawson is wearing a suit on the top, but we know he's wearing like
That's
cowboy
right.
pants on the bottom.
And I have, due to technological issues in different cities while I was traveling, I've had to do webinars in some interesting places. So it's a good thing that you can't see us all the time, but the information is the same. So no, I'm a full believer in the webinars.
I've literally done a webinar from the North Pole in Alaska.
Okay, I was going to say TMI. TMI.
Yeah, no, I wasn't going there, Kim. You know me.
Like, wait, this is a child-friendly show.
And one thing about webinars is if you need to ease yourself into speaking, webinars are a great way to do it because you don't have to even show your mug if you don't want to. But like you were saying, the combo, Kim, I think maybe a year or so ago, I contracted with a group to do their kind of conference for all of their employees, and then they just weren't getting enough people that wanted to spend the money on travel. So they were like, well, we don't want to cancel you, but and I was like, hey, you know what? I can do it as a webinar. I have the technology. You just have to promote the link and promote it out to your people, but I can do it that way. So I think it is a nice technological backup in a lot of ways, but also if you're new to speaking, it's an easy way to ease yourself in there and start to feel really good about it.
Absolutely. I mean, I can even tell you that when we first started doing these recordings on behalf of the agency, Devin is the speaker who said to me, the reason that you have to do this is because you are the face behind the agency. And I really had to just kind of suck it up and say, all right, then for the speaker's success, I will put myself on the internet. I will do interviews like this. I will put myself out of my own comfort zone because I would very much like to hide behind a speaker and be like, you go on stage and have a wonderful time. I'm going to go hide in, the dark room and nobody will be able to see me. I'm all good.
Blue,
But so Devin is the
Bluetooth
one to
high five.
blame for this.
Bluetooth
Sorry.
You do have to get out there. And I think I find that there are just as many business owners, if not more, that are more introverted than being extroverted. I know I was going to just network with an organization, and I pulled up and they weren't there, and I looked for their phone number on their business, and there was no phone number, so I did Google, and I called their phone number, and the phone number is, we don't answer our phones, so email us.
Oh, great.
I was like,
Oh, wow.
wow.
How are they in business?
You can't hide in business. To be successful, you really can't hide.
Right.
You have to put yourself out there. You have to be findable, not just found. You have to be where people can find you. So that's good. Let's talk a little bit about mistakes that we see people making when they're starting up their speaking career. Kim's already laughing. But let's talk about some mistakes, and even a mistake that you made, Devin. And
they're like, wait a minute, we got shanghaied. Steve Dawson's like, I don't make mistakes. I'm a CFE.
Oh, right.
Like, what's wrong with you, girl?
So, you or somebody else, let's just talk about some of the common mistakes. And I always love to chime in on how to make them better. How we.
Who wants to go first?
Oh, come on, volunteers.
I can say one of the top things that I wasn't doing originally when I first started speaking was recording myself. It's not a matter of really recording for the sake of airing it back in the beginning when you're first starting out. I think it's just super important to have somebody in the back with an iPhone, or set up an iPhone, or set up some kind of camera in the back to pay attention to what you say. Because what you'll notice is, especially when you're nervous, you're going to repeat the same word over and over. You're going to get hooked on. Well, I always have a word that I end up repeating 1,000 times, and when I watch it back, man, it drives me bonkers. Yeah. And other people, when they're watching it live, they don't really notice it as much because it's not recorded. But little nuances just to perfect your ability to connect with people that you'll catch on camera. And it is tough watching yourself back. It's tough hearing yourself for the first time if you've never done it. But it is super important as far as feedback. And also, on that note, the second mistake that I was making in the very beginning was paying attention to audio. So audio in whatever room you're in the beginning, if it's small and intimate and there's only 30 people in the room, learn to project your voice. Don't go crazy with audio speakers and everything else. Like, practice projection and practice with the enunciation, so people in the back of the room with only 30 people in the room there, can handle it. But make sure, if you do start getting into larger audiences, or you are in front of 100 or whatever it may be, that you've tested the audio and everything else, because nothing interrupts your momentum and your impact more than a mic going in and out, or more than audio issues. And if you don't have that down and you're not nailing that in recording and in public speaking, in this kind of chat forum, I mean, it will just drive people crazy. And those are two of the biggest mistakes that I'd make in the beginning, and not being prepared.
Well,
and I will agree with that. Everything said there, the opportunity to see what you look like, the things that you don't realize you're doing. Yeah.
I told you to shine that head, man.
Absolutely. And the swaying back and forth, you're taking 2 steps and you think you're making the audience dizzy. And you're going to lose them at that point in time. And then one of the other mistakes that I see people making when they first start out is to sponsor or do the presentation, and to try to charge for it all themselves. They're not in with a group necessarily. And I believe that when you start out, there's got to be some coattail. You've got to be on somebody's coattails, learning the trade, learning how to do it, rather than just trying to start out by yourself. And I'm going to put on this great seminar, and you go to all this expense and marketing. Accountants aren't real good marketers. And so.
And y'all are so fun too.
Right. No, absolutely. We have this tendency to think that the entire world wants everything we've got to offer. Mm-hmm. And they don't know they need anything we've got to offer. So it's pretty difficult.
the whole build it and they will come myth
Yeah.
that exists in business, period,
Mhm.
is that if I build it, if I open up my door, everybody's going to be banging
Right.
down. And it doesn't happen like that. You need momentum. You need, a lot of the different elements you were talking about there. I think it's funny, Devin, some of the things you were sharing, I'm sure we all have these stories of walking into a speaking engagement and things like no heat, no electricity, no mic, no, I was doing a free speaking engagement in Fort Worth last week. And as I'm talking, and I'm a very visual person, so my presentation is very visual. Thank God I don't read my slides, but as I'm talking, I can see my computer go, a fatal error has occurred. Windows is going to reboot. And I was like, nice, thank you. Right in the middle of the presentation. You have to be able to roll with the punches. Because that could have totally shut down the presentation. I only have 20 minutes. I don't have time to go sit and try to reboot up my computer and get it to the right screen and all the things and all that nice fun stuff. You just have to kind of roll with punches. If you don't practice, it's really hard to roll with the punches.
Something
really hard
will always happen. Something will always happen. And that's emotional intelligence, right? It's the ability to look at it and go, you know what? This mic's not working, and go with it. That is such an important fact, because I see so many speakers just start to get irritated and they spiral out of control, and everybody, from the audience perspective, I think you become empathetic and sympathetic in that moment for them, but
for like 30 seconds.
I've watched people have a breakdown on stage when just literally start crying because the monitor went out or the mic went out. And I'm like, wow, man, it's not that big a deal. People love you and the audience loves you, right? They're there to hear from you and your knowledge. They're not there for something perfect,
Right.
That's a really good point. I always look at that, because sometimes you go to some of these engagements and you think there's going to be so many people there, and you walk in the room and it's like cricket. And, I always have the attitude of, well, God, you're putting the people that need to hear in front of me, so I have to serve. That's why I'm here,
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. And, from a business perspective, I was interviewing 2 potential speakers today and said, how do you market yourself? What's your following on social media? What are you currently doing? And I got crickets as my answers. Nothing. And I thought, well, these guys have been selected because they are actively marketing their businesses, because they are out there. They're engaged in social media. They are establishing a following. And I tell people, if you want to bill like a Cadillac, you better have that backup plan. Otherwise, you're going to be looking like a Pinto. And that is just how it is, right? It's true. And then from a business perspective, it is what Devin said in the beginning. Decide what impact you want to have, what you want your speaking career to do for you, your business, or what have you. Because if you have these expectations that are unrealistic, let's say, well, then your entire business plan just went awry, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people don't think about the business about being a speaker. They just think about the sexy part about being a speaker. And then because you haven't prepared, you're like what Devin said, you have a meltdown on stage and then you run away.
Yeah. Well, and I think for a lot of people, if speaking is new and you're looking at it, you only see the work on stage. And it feels easy because if it's a good speaker, it should feel easy. But how many, I know what a 1 hour speaking engagement involves on my time. Guys, y'all want to chime in? Like even just a 1 hour, it's free speaking engagement. You're going to somebody's meeting, you're speaking. What's the total time, just that one day, that it takes you, that speaking engagement takes out of your business?
If it's a first time topic that I hadn't necessarily presented before, it can take 2 full days preparation, just to put together an hour's worth of what I know. Let's take 31 years worth of stories and interesting things that have happened and try to put that into 1 hour, and I can think myself to death. But it can take 2 days of preparation time just to do that.
Go and speak.
Yeah.
Are you, I know I get there early so that I can network with the people and learn something about the crowd.
Right.
When you're there, then you got to break down. Plus, then you have questions that you have to be responsive to. So, I mean, even just
Right.
the day of the event can be, I know if I'm speaking for 20 minutes, it's usually 4 hours I'm out of my office.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what y'all see too?
I think an important thing to note around what you're saying is you've got to decide whether spending time out networking, meeting people, connecting with people one-on-one, and it really is relative to where your business is, right? Are you wasting time by attempting to be this big dog that's on stage when you could be closing business that's bringing revenue into your company, right? And get to the point where you've got absolute value and there is a topic that you can nail. And once you're at that point, and once you're not stressed about the amount of time that you've got to invest, literally an entire day, in some cases 2 days, in some cases longer. If it's a new topic, I mean, how many hours are you investing just into narrowing down and refining, like Steve was talking about? I mean, there's a lot of hours that go into it with, to be honest, not a huge reward financially in the beginning when you're first starting out. So you've got to really take in consideration the time value proposition of what you're doing. And can I be out there and spending that 15 total hours making money right now and building my business and networking with people and selling one-on-one, and then trusting the fact that if you go out and you kick some butt right now, once you get the business moving a little bit further and you've got some revenue in the bank and you're past this 90-day rock star mark that you're helping everybody get, then consider the public speaking and start with the free, simple things too. So you're not investing a lot of time. Start with the 15-minute talks before you dive into the hour talks that Steve's talking about.
Because an hour can be long or it can be really, really short. And these guys know that.
It depends, and it can be the same presentation and go both ways.
I mean, the worst thing I think is if somebody has, let's say they have too little content. And as a media professional, I've seen this where I've trained people to be on television. They were trained for 2 minutes. And then guess what? In Colorado Springs, where there's no news anyway, they kept them on for 10 minutes. And in broadcast, that is infinity.
Yeah.
It really is. Let's talk a little bit about the do's, the things that we have in our toolkit. And Kim started off chatting about this with, the reason that the people who are on the show with her today is because they market their business. They understand that it's not just a speaker agent's job to book you. It's also your job to support those efforts. So let's talk a little bit about what's in your toolkit. So Steve, what do you do to support the speaking in your business from a marketing standpoint?
The thing that's most important to me is the very fact and understanding that speaking is my only way to market. When you look at what I do and you look at the people that need my services, they're not going. I've told Kim this quite often. You've got to try to figure out a way to sell me, which provides a need to somebody, fraud prevention, but these people don't know that they need it. So good luck trying to sell a product that people have no idea that they need. So in my do's list, the first thing that I absolutely understood was there's no way to go out and do a yellow page ad or a newspaper ad saying, the finest fraud examiner in the world. If you ever experience fraud, give me a call. That's not how that works. So when fraud occurs or the suspicion of fraud occurs in an organization, they already have to know who to go to. And that public speaking is the only marketing. That's how they know what you know. And so my first tool in the toolbox is to understand that a lot of times that's basically my only tool in the toolbox.
Yeah.
The other thing, as far as the tool in the toolbox, is you have to know what you're talking about.
No wonder I've been doing so bad.
Dang! I can't mess it up.
It is amazing.
Any Asian girl will come down to Lubbock, Texas.
That's right.
With a bat.
I'll sit in front of speakers, and it's obvious they've been asked to talk about something that they have a limited knowledge on, but not an expert knowledge about. And boy, people see right through that. People are just like kids, They're going to know when you're lying to them.
Mm-hmm.
You can only keep that for so long.
You've just got to be prepared.
That story about the $3 million lawsuit wasn't true, Steve. We know that.
Oh, yeah.
I feel your pain, Steve, when you are referencing something that people don't even understand that they need, because people hear the word dating coach and they go, "What? You mean I'm not just going to meet the love of my life standing in Starbucks, and I've ended up in 2 divorces for just because that's the way it was supposed to be?" Like, no, you might need a little help on the relationship side of things. So I feel your pain. I can't put out an ad either and say you need help finding love.
Right.
The first do that I would say is picture everyone naked. It helps.
I can see why. I mean, that's not fair.
And see, look at how cute Devin is. Devin's like, no problem.
Or more importantly, encourage them to picture you naked, and then everybody's on the same page. Okay, don't do that. It might get distracting. I think the biggest do is going back to what Steve said. Have a mission, have a purpose, have an intent, have that thing that you just are on fire about regarding what you do. Because when speaking, we've got to understand that I forget the exact stats, and I knew this at one point, but it's like 73% of what you say isn't remembered. We only remember like 3% of what you're actually saying. We read body language. We pay attention to body language more. It's my energy, the impact. How did that person in front of the room make me feel? And do I trust them in order to use their services, right? When you're in front of the room, your content is less valuable than your belief and your passion behind what you're delivering. And if you can get them to buy into you from that stage, then they're going to come up to you and say, listen, I need you. I don't know quite why I need you, but I need you. And I believe that you are going to be able to help me. And that's really the message you're delivering from a posture, body language, energetic perspective from the front of the room. And what you say is important if you're listing it in bullet points. So you got to also take in consideration do number 2. That sounded strange. The second do that you want to do is refine your message to simple, digestible bullet points. Don't just get up there and blab away. And in some cases, you're going to feel the energy of the room, depending upon what you're doing, right? If it's more motivational, if it's more inspirational speaking that you've been asked to do, then you want to feel the audience participation. What point did you just make that you see that they might be a little confused on, or feel that they really need you to drive home? And be flexible in those points, but make sure it's digestible information that they can jot down and keep note of, and give them action steps to follow up on after you speak with them. Don't forget your call to action, because if you forget a call to action, you just went up and spoke for no reason.
For no reason. No reason. And both of these guys, what they speak on is so cool. But from a consumer level, both of these guys, we kind of want to put the paper bag over our head and then approach them. Hi, Steve. I committed fraud today. I mean, who's going to do that, right?
Right.
By the same token, hi, Mr. Kearns.
I need help.
I need help, and I need to come to your workshop today.
Weird one.
Yep.
There's a couple of things. Oh, go ahead, Kim. Go for it.
No. So I think what both of these guys bring to the table, though, it is that charisma, and it's also the approachability, where I know a lot of speakers, they finish their talk, they're tired, they're drinking water, and then you are bombarded with people who want to speak to you. And, graciousness is huge with both of these guys, because they are always professional. They're really, really good, even off the stage, and being able to approach that person and not feel intimidated, I think is a really big quality and characteristic.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You want to be approachable. That's a great word that you use there.
Yeah.
And we sent you the Dawson crime scene tape.
Yeah. They'll be looking at me before the before the thing even starts, and they'll think, boy, this guy's going to be a piece of work. And then after an hour, when they realize I actually might have a sense of humor, they warm up, and that's the best compliment when the thing is over is a line forming to come talk to you.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you've connected with them, and they've got more questions that obviously you may have run out of time. And so it's a great feeling, but that approachability is critical.
Mm-hmm.
Check your ego
To
at the
being
door.
asked to come in. Absolutely.
It's a duality of being that expert, being that leader, being the person that can motivate them, but yet feeling like that you don't ever want your audience to feel like you've been talking down to them.
Right.
Shame on you. Here's all the bad things you're doing. It is a careful thing to kind of manage the duality. Now, Devin, I like one of the things you were saying without oversharing. I am I'll overshare like crazy, and that's something I've had to work really hard on in my speaking is pulling back, because I just know if I just tell them this.
Duly noted.
I can change the world, and I get really wrapped up in that. But there's a saying that I heard one time. It's like, be careful that you're not feeding somebody with a fire hose when they just wanted a sip of water.
That's awesome.
That's
true.
what's in my mind every time I'm writing another presentation. They're just looking for a sip of water. I don't need to give them the fire hose.
Yeah.
I would love to be in your brain when you're picturing that.
It is. I'm sorry. That's how my brain works. Very visual there. So
Yeah, that's important.
So,
Very true. And, in what Steve does for a living, I think that the information in small doses is actually what you have to do, because it is such a sensitive topic. It could bury a company. It could, at some point amuse people in terms of the lack of common sense. But if he delivered everything from a forensic investigation in one fell swoop, I think they'd be running from the door.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you got to treat them like a jury. Every report I write, every bit of testimony that I provide on a witness stand, you've got to understand that you're talking to people that wisely chose not to do this for a living. No, I really do enjoy it. No. But they decided not necessarily to be forensic auditors. And so you don't have a jury of forensic auditors over there, and you can just bury them in information. You can't do that. You've got to give it in quick, understandable pieces that they'll understand, take home with them.
There's value in quality versus quantity as well. I'm sitting here listening to what we're talking about, and I have a lot of people that when they do webinars or they come to me about public speaking, they're like, well, if I tell them everything, then what are they going to buy? And you cannot come from that perspective ever. You want to respect everybody's time that's in that room and give them the golden nugget, and don't be afraid that they're not going to come to you after that, because they will. If you give them information, particularly if it's free speaking, right? And you can be strategic around that. You can give them a great golden nugget, and at the same time leave them curious. And that's how you engineer the conversation. And then you end it with a great call to action. So that curiosity, you've got to give them that call to action, but never be afraid to deliver quality content, and never come from a lack position when you're speaking to people.
Right.
One of my favorite phrases is, to all the speakers, you have to be willing to be vulnerable and give 120% of you ... without medication. You have to, when you hit that stage, you have to absolutely bring it. That is what a paid speaking engagement is all about, right? And that's why practicing on the free end is fantastic, because you do not want to be in a paid speaking engagement or any and get up there and choke. That is the absolute worst thing, because that 20-minute keynote or 20-minute whatever just turned into the 20 longest minutes of your entire life, right?
Yeah.
And everybody else's.
Yeah.
Well, yes, we forgot about them too, right?
I like what we were just sharing there about coming from a place of service and not of lack. But even I just take the business side of it and talk about it from a marketing perspective. When you serve to that level, the right client, if you've engineered your talk well, the right client is saying, oh my gosh, she gets me. She, Devin has been in my car after a date. He knows when I'm yelling, exactly.
I have been.
And people go, did you hear
Too much information.
Well, you know what I mean? It's identification. The wrong client, the client that we can't do our best work with, and that's the only forfeit to me is we can't do great work together. It's going to take the information and go. And that's okay. That's great at you qualifying who you serve and who you want to work with more. So if somebody's just there for free, let them take it.
A life-changing tip that was given to me by a very, very famous public speaking individual who's traveled the world doing it. He said, it doesn't matter the size of the room. You see those one or two people that are sitting here going like this, you aim your energy at those people. And the more you get them agreeing, you know that you're impacting everybody else. But don't, what you can get distracted by is the person that's in the other, the right-hand side of the room who's like, exactly, body posture shut off, and you're trying to get them to engage, but then all that energy is thrown off everybody else. You're looking for the nodding heads and really focus and hone your energy at particularly the one that you just feel like connection with, and get into that mode. And connecting with one, you're going to connect with a many. If you try and connect with a many, you're going to miss the one.
Yeah.
That's a really good
And I have found that exact same thing, even in a crowd listening to a forensic fraud prevention speech,
You're not getting a lot of this.
Yeah, well, you get a lot of it.
Do you?
Yeah, and you think, well, either they know what I'm talking about or they're the ones that are actually doing the fraud.
That's exactly what I did yesterday.
I told you not to do that.
That's exactly right. And then those that look like they are on another planet while you're speaking, you kind of worry about them. And I think, I have all kinds of thoughts while I'm up there talking, thinking, well, this person is really, they're ready to get out of here because they know that they've been caught. And I don't know how many times they have actually, those are the ones that have come up afterwards. Those that just were deadpan the whole time. They come up afterwards and they're so animated. Oh, I loved your speech. And everything you're talking about. And I thought, why didn't you react during that? Because it really does. You know that you're connecting. And it helps the speaker, when people are reacting like that. And you have somebody to connect with that are shaking their heads.
Yep.
We were talking about webinars earlier. And webinars, most of the types that I do, we have the slides up there and I'm talking behind the slides, so you don't see my face, which that's good for the audience. But for me, I love being in front of people and connecting with them. And when it's a webinar like that, although I love doing them, it's more difficult. Yeah. Because I don't know if I'm connecting with whoever is out there participating in this webinar. Yeah. So that connection it's very motivating.
A great story that I experienced regarding body language, connecting with one person in the room, and how everybody else in the room and their body language may seem shut off, but you catch that one person, you pour your energy into that one person. We were actually in Alaska. We had about 150 people in the room. We were actually looking to sell a product at the end of my job was to close the room and do the pitch, right? And I'm not a huge advocate for standing up and selling from the front of the room, although it happens sometimes, right? If that's the objective. And everybody was there to listen to what our product was. And so we were in it, and I was just connected with this person in the middle of the room, totally pouring my energy into that person. Everybody, you start seeing the rest of the audience participating, the rest of the audience sitting on the edge of their chairs, I'm engaging. And then a couple comes in late. And sometimes this would throw me off, but I mean, I'm like past my close, like I'm just finishing. And all of a sudden you see applications go out, everybody's signing up. But because I engaged with one individual, I sat down with a couple that was late and I was like, hey, let's get caught up on what everybody's excited about. And they're like, I don't care. The entire room's on fire. Just give me the application I'm in, right? And I was like, wow, but it was because I connected with one in that room. To drive that point home, when you do that, it doesn't matter. The energy in the room just seems to feed off of that. And you do have the person that was sitting in the back that you're like, there's no way, they hated everything I had to say. And all of a sudden they're standing in front of you and they're your biggest cheerleader. And you're like, it's crazy.
It's really interesting. I don't know. The people that aren't engaged, they kind of crack me up. I don't know why I find it funny in the middle of us being engagement, but we all impact change in a certain way. And so I always know that when you get somebody like that, that's so like, no, you're like, man, you're the one that needs it. But I'll just keep talking. You'll see, you'll be back here. No worries. I'm okay. Yeah, we're coming to the end. We've actually been on for almost an hour, guys. I don't know if it feels like an hour. We've had a few people pop on. We've got Whitney Hitt that's popped on and is chatting with us here. She was all into your story. Devin, she's like, "Oh, what's the cliffhanger? Were they done?" It was fun. As you can see, we are laughing a lot, which I love because it just makes life fun. But I want to just. What are you laughing about? No, it does make life fun. But I want to give a couple of things. If you're interested and you want to talk to Kim, she's with the Maxwell James Agency. Kim, go ahead and give your URL, and Amy will type it into our chat box here.
It is maxwelljames.net.
Okay, there you go, maxwelljames.net. And then Devin, do you want to give a quick URL shout out?
I sure can. I think the best place, if you've got questions for me regarding speaking or dating, preferably dating, because that's what I love to do. I love speaking, but that's Kim's job to coach on the rest of the speaking. You go to Devin Kern, so it's DEVONKERNS.rocks, as the rock star of dating and love, /Ask Devin. So you can ask me any question on there, and I will write you back.
Awesome. So that was devinkerns.rocks/askdevin. That's to my memory. Okay, cool. And then Steve, how about you? If somebody needs your help in forensics. Oh my God.
You can. That's right. Go to the website dawsonforensicgroup.com and you can email me from there, and I will answer it all.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for being on the show. I've had a great time being on here. I think we've shared a lot of different information just about using speaking in your business, whether it's free webinars or paid speaking. From the sounds of it, all of us are doing it all. And that's a really good business decision. It's called leverage, meaning you're using one piece of content multiple times. And even everything that you see with me here on the lab show is content that I might share in speaking, but I'm going really deep on one little thing, where in speaking I'm having to stay a little bit higher. I can't go so deep. So that's how, as small business owners, 10, 20 employees or under, you have to find leverage whatever way you can. And when you get leverage, that's when you get growth in your business. If you want some more great ideas, we've got a free gift for you that's at yourbizrules.com/marketing quick fix. And you'll get 87 different ways that you can market your business. And you just need one. Like you're saying, Steve, this is his speaking. I do speaking and networking. Devin, how many do you do? Well, consider social media. I just consider that supporting the other two in some ways. But
yeah, my job is to plaster my face everywhere. I apologize on behalf of everyone, but get used to it. You'll see me a lot.
It's about being findable, not just being found. That's
right.
So thank you so much for joining us. Anybody have any parting words? One thing you feel like, man, I got to share this before we go.
I got to share this. I think Steve Dawson's parting gift, you've got to get handcuffs for your free gift and the crime scene tape. And Devin, same thing. You need handcuffs.
Dual purpose is knocked out in one.
Tape. I'm telling you, this is very strategic having these guys on here.
Okay.
I'll leave it with that. Yeah.
Devin, how about you? Any parting words?
Don't lose the key.
Don't lose the key. I will say, don't leave it in your suitcase. That was
my God.
Totally before 9/11. That's all I have to say. Most embarrassing moment of my life.
Yeah. I'd say find your passion and run with it. And just deliver that and trust that that's going to drive traffic. It's going to drive everything. And particularly in speaking, make it about the audience and show them your passion in impacting their life and whatever you're an expert in.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys. Thank you, our audience. We've got 20 great eyeballs out there, a few people on our live chat that we've been able to have some fun with. So thank you for joining us. This is the Double Your Business in 90 Days show. We are here every Monday afternoon at 1:30. I know we've had a little hiatus with holidays and all that nice fun stuff, but we're back to be here for until the next holiday. And you can catch us on iTunes. You can catch us on Blab. As always, you can also find me at yourbiztools.com. So that's it so much. Thanks so much, guys. Have a wonderful week.
Thank
you.
you.
See you. Thank you.
Bluetooth high five.
Bluetooth high five.